Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode in our podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Cottam, and Katie Spencer is also your host. How are you doing, Katie?
I'm doing well, Nikki. Thanks for having me. It's a nice summer day and things are so much more relaxed without having the strict schedule of school. So I'm really enjoying a little bit more relaxed pace today.
Oh, that's beautiful. Me too. I'm seeing out this window, the beautiful trees and the sunshine. It's just amazing. I'm always excited for these topics because they're the topics I'm most excited about. So if you're like, Nikki's always excited, well, it's because I talk about the things I'm most excited about. Today, we get to talk about emotions. Emotions can be thrilling, emotions really are what drive us to do the things that we do and how we think about the things going on in our lives and in our spaces. We've talked about in a previous episode with Karol K. Truman's book, Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. We're going to continue a little bit on that. We're going to talk about the emotions. And emotion, if you break down the word, the E stands for energy and motion. So emotion literally stands for energy in motion. Emotions are normal. They're natural. They're part of our human divine experience, and they're meant to be felt. But there is this caveat with emotions. They're not always pretty. They're not always fun. We might have judgment toward one emotion or another. We might be scared of certain emotions. We might be angry that certain emotions exist. And what are those? Those are emotions about emotions. So it can seem kind of scary. It can seem kind of difficult to navigate this. But if you really narrow it down to why people strive for something, it's not because they want that thing, it's because they want the emotion attached to what they believe that thing will bring them. So even if people say emotions don't drive my decisions and my goals, emotions absolutely do. So the sooner we can actually understand how emotions work within us, we will be able to recognize them as just that, things that are in motion. It's not something that should ever be stagnant or stuck. They are feelings that we can feel and let go, or they're feelings that we can call to ourselves, like gratitude and acceptance. So, we're going to talk about that. We're going to get a little bit deep into emotions today. We're going to talk about what emotions are, and are emotions sometimes bad? Are emotions uncomfortable? Well, we know the answer to that. But how do we use some of that discomfort as an indication or something to be recognized instead of a punishment, damnation, um, sabotage? Because really, that's what a lot of people look at emotions to be. So, our bodies are always generating these emotions. Our bodies just do. It's part of the natural experience. And if you happen to know you're a human design generator, well, buckle up. You do most of the generating of emotions. Tend to see a lot of people who are either manifesting generators or generators. They wake up and their emotions could be off the wall. They could just be totally different than the emotions they felt as they were going to sleep. They could be totally different than the emotions they felt the day before. And part of it is that as spiritual beings, we have this energy and motion all the time. And so these emotions are constantly being creative and brought up within us. And if emotions are stuck, they tend to surface more and more often because we haven't truly let them go. And as we talked about in the Feelings Buried Alive Never Die book, by burying our anger, by burying our fear, by burying all of these emotions, it doesn't cause them to go away. It actually puts them in a deeper level of our body. So they will surface, but they will come up and rear its ugly head as a trapped emotion in ways we don't want. So we're going to go into how we approach emotions. Let's talk a little bit about some of the science or some of the literature that we have related to emotions and how emotions and feelings work within our bodies. Katie, do you want to talk a little bit about some of these different pieces of literature.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Nikki. I love how you broke down the word emotions, that it's energy and motion, right? Because that was new knowledge to me. I really have always been taught that emotions are feelings, and feelings are something that we should control, right? Feelings are in society, in the world. It's well, some feelings are good and some feelings are bad. Some you should suppress and not, right? I know many have grown up in a society where men should not really ever show emotion. That emotion can be these feelings can be a weakness, right? And if they express sadness, or how many times have I seen men grow up, or as children, boys are told, you don't cry. If you cry, it's a weakness, right? And so it was really interesting for me to start learning in my adult years that emotions are not feelings, but they're actually energy. And that changes everything to me. I was taught this by Nikki, actually, but Nikki referenced Dr. Bradley Nelson. And so Dr. Bradley Nelson is known for the book, The Emotion Code. So I have the newer version. Nikki has the older. So if you can see the picture, if you're watching on video, you can see the differences of where they have the same information. The core of it all, he's just added a few new things in the newer version that he's added over his research. But the beauty of what he talks about is the science behind emotions. So emotions are not feelings, although we confuse them with feelings. We feel them, but emotions are energy. So I just want to break this down. We need to understand that through science, through quantum physics, everything in this universe is created out of energy, right? Our bodies are created out of energy. If you break our bodies down into our different molecules and atoms, it's actually every little bit of pieces of energy that creates us as a solid being, right? But we know we're not completely solid. This is the crazy part. Science tells us, I'm touching myself, like it stops. But if we put ourselves under a microscope, you'll see that we're all these little tiny atoms and molecules put together with space around us, because we're just pieces of energy. Okay, I know. I'm not a scientist. I'm trying to explain this the best that I can. But emotions are the same thing. Emotions are a sense of energy. And everything that has energy has a vibration associated. Okay. And so I think that we've talked in the past of different vibrations. We may hear in society now that we talk about, well, I want higher vibration, lower vibration people, right? We talk about energy vampires that suck the things out of us, right? Nikki's talked about the law of attraction, that the more that we put out in the world, the energy, the idea, the feelings, the emotions, whatever we're putting out into the world, we will receive the same back. Right? So we're going to talk about how all of this comes together, but emotions are energy, and different emotions have different vibrational frequencies. All energy has a vibrational frequency, and they range in lower vibration to higher vibration. And that's the beauty, but none are bad. So I grew up in a world where this is good and this is bad. This is good, this is bad. Like, I kind of grew up in a time, and maybe it's just my world that I lived in, but I felt like I was taught very black and white. Good versus bad, bad versus good. Food, there's good foods, bad foods. And in reality, we know now, or as I've personally been on this journey, and I think Nikki also, that we don't live in this black and white world. We live in a world that is beautifully made and created with all different aspects for our greater good, for us to learn, right? There's diversity that helps us. The polar opposites help us understand. And what we gain and where we want to be is in neutrality. We want to be in a neutral space. And so emotions are neutral. They each have their purpose for us. Okay. So I know I'm probably losing a little bit of you, but going back to the science of it, each emotion has a vibrational frequency. And being that it's not a feeling that is just something that we can control or, push aside, or some people feel like feelings aren't real, right? That's just you. But emotions are real things. They're real energy. And so just like when we consume food, our body has to break it down, right? Our body breaks it down beautifully. Science in our body creates and knows how to pull the nutrients down, break it through, use every aspect of it for our good in our body. And then we have waste that expels out of us, right? Emotions are just like that. It is a vibration that we attract to ourselves when we have an emotion. It is an actual energy within us that needs to be processed in order, just like our food, for us to get the experience, the learning, whatever is coming, why that emotion is there for us, and then we process it and we release it out of us. Okay? Am I making sense, Nikki? Am I losing
Yeah.
people?
No, you're explaining it great. I love it. And I just wanna make a quick connection with the liver and the heart. So a lot of us think of our heart as being yes, it's an organ that pumps blood and does these other functions with oxygenating the body and these different things and circulation. But the heart is also, like Katie was saying, made up of these atomic particles that are mostly space, right? Mostly energy, and they're all put together to form that. Well, just like the heart does that physically, it also does these things spiritually, and it does them in a sense of love. And that's something that I think a lot of us understand. There are people who actually die of a broken heart from an emotional loss. There's this very close connection between the energy imprint of the heart and the physical dynamic of the heart. So the heart does pump that love, pump that spiritual embodiment of love, not only in our bodies, but in our entire energy fields and around us. So that's why when people are in our spaces and we're full of love, they automatically feel that. And so for that connection, I think that makes a little bit of sense. I want to move to the liver now. And I want to talk a little bit about what the liver does. So the liver, literally has like 20 main functions that is pretty crazy if you look them all up. The liver is powerful. And the liver has key roles at identifying certain toxins in the body that need to be removed. It's great at helping with the white blood cells and helping the immune system and the lymphatic system. It kind of like ties a whole bunch of systems together. And when we think about the liver, and Katie, going back to the emotion code, one of the most eye opening things I ever learned about the liver is that the emotion of anger gets trapped in the liver most often. And why is that? I want to talk a little bit here about why that is. Why is it anger? Well, the liver works in connection with our body's boundaries. It's very sensitive to these pieces of food we ingest that might have a lower vibration, or some people might say a toxic load. They're very sensitive to all of those things physically. But it also picks up on all of these areas where the blood maybe has been contaminated, and blood is associated with spirit. You don't have to remember all this stuff. Just go with me on that. It's very complex, and we're trying to put this all in an episode that could kind of help you wrap your mind around why it's important to understand emotions. And so if you don't get it, that's fine. Don't even try. You can go back and listen if you want. But essentially, one of the main functions of the liver is to express when a boundary has been crossed. And anger, like Katie was saying, with the good and the bad emotions, which none of them are really bad, they just are. And we obviously don't want certain ones to just be raging in our bodies all the time. That's not comfortable. And we'll talk a little bit about navigating through that and clearing those up. But anger itself is not a bad emotion. Anger is the first emotion expressed that tells us when a boundary has been breached. And we've talked about boundaries in previous episodes. We've talked about calling our energy back to us. And anger is one of those emotions now that we get to talk about that tells us when a boundary has been crossed. So if you feel anger towards somebody or about something, it just means that in that situation, based off of all the evidence that your conscious mind could put together, it made sense to come up with anger because in a certain paradigm you had or a certain situation you were in, it felt like a boundary was being crossed. So before you jump to any more conclusions about anger being bad, anger actually is a great teacher. In fact, one of my favorite physicians that works with people for their physical ailments, as well as he does a lot of research on the psychological backgrounds behind the different disease counterparts. Fascinating. So if you ever want to learn, like, what is the personality type behind the cancer patient? Look it up. Like it's amazing and it teaches you how to break out of that emotionally, energetically without having to do anything super crazy before you actually get to the root, which is the emotional complex dynamic. His name is Gabor Maté, Gabor. Maté, Mate. He's a Canadian physician. He wrote the book When the Body Says No. That is a fantastic book. It's a long read, but it's well documented, well cited. You can look up all the research. It's fantastic. I've been listening to that book on Audible for at least 2 years now. I still haven't finished it, but it's fascinating. It's always on my phone ready to go whenever I'm really wanting to dive into that deep intellectual audio. So he says about anger, he says, allowing yourself to feel and express anger in healthy, constructive ways allows you to correct those boundary issues. It acts as the great protector when your personal boundaries are threatened. So essentially, anger is the great protector. And if you think about it in a primal sense, anger is something that pretty much all animals have. They have anger. And when does that anger flare up? It flares up when they feel threatened. That's when anger shows up. So you're not bad for having these primal instincts. It actually shows that you are made of physical material that's made of a spiritual substance, and that you, along with animals and these other higher functioning beings on this planet, have the capacity to experience anger. It shows that you can. It's a great protector and it allows you to process things. What's going on? Well, what does the liver do? It processes. So one thing I want to talk about is when the body has too many emotions stagnant in there, what's the spiritual liver's job? The liver's job is literally to clear out that large array of stagnant emotions. When there's a storage of anger in the liver, what happens is there ends up being anger toward a lot of things related to moving forward, related to healing, and relating to even God sometimes. I have a lot of clients who have a deep rooted anger towards God because he allowed certain things to happen or he didn't fix things on their timetable. I'm not saying everybody does, but I'm saying don't be scared of that. I just did a session for a client today who has absolutely never brought up to me an anger related to God because for her, it felt like that would be her damning herself. No, no, it must be me. It must be my fault that I have anger towards God. I'm like, no, no, no. By all means, God can handle it. He gets it. He knows you are you, and he knows that anger exists, and he's not ashamed of anger, and you shouldn't be either. And anger is a process. It's not anything bad. In fact, it's part of the grief process. If you ever break down the stages of grief, anger is always there, and it doesn't mean it's bad. It's just a natural part. And so if we look at that and give ourselves the same grace that a person who is bereft of a loved one needs, we all are experiencing these. Maybe you haven't just experienced the death of a loved one, or maybe you did, but you're still feeling angry. Well, how about if we're grieving over the loss of something that is important to us and invisible to somebody else? I wanted to talk a little bit about that, the liver and anger and how this all works together. And you're not flawed, you're not unworthy, you're not less than, you're not the scum of the earth to have these emotions. These are real emotions and they're connected to us because we are of higher intelligence.
Thank you, Nikki. I appreciate you taking that time and explaining. And as you were talking and, really showing that these emotions have a purpose in our life, right? You mentioned trapped emotions, and I wanted to just kind of explain to people if you don't understand that what that means, because we were talking, I was talking before Nikki started to tell us about the heart and the liver, about emotions being energy, right? And that it's important for us to process them, which we all feel, right? I'm sure we can all say and say that we have felt anger in the moment, right? You feel it. I've gotten a lot of what I've just been sharing the background of emotions from the book from Dr. Bradley Nelson. He said there's three things that we experience when an emotion comes up. Okay. So the first thing that we do is that our body generates that emotional vibration. So just like we said, an emotion is an energy, or it has a vibrational frequency to it, right? So like we said, when anger comes, I'm sure that you guys have all felt it. Like you can feel it in your body, right? You can get this bubbling up, you can start sweating, you can, like there's different reactions our body can start to feel. That is because it is that energy frequency that is actually happening, right? So that's step one, is we feel it. That generates an emotional vibration within us, right? Step two is that we can begin to feel that emotion in our thoughts and our physical sensations as we go along, right? That's continuing on more from what I just had said, right? The vibration comes, then we feel it in that physical and in our thoughts. And then step three is that we can choose to let that emotion process through it. We can sit in it, right? We can allow it. We acknowledge, even if we don't say, oh, this is anger, right? We can feel something is coming up, and then we acknowledge it, we allow it to pass through us, and it moves on. Okay, now Nikki talked about emotions becoming trapped. Trapped is meaning that it didn't process fully out of us. Just like I connected it to food, if it gets stuck in our system and the waste never leaves our body, we're we're going to have a negative reaction to that. And so that's what Nikki was talking about when she was specifically talking about the liver. That anger can get trapped in the liver. And just like the liver processes all the toxins out of us, we also need to figure out how to process these emotions, right? Now, sadly, emotions come, we don't get to pick when they come. They can come at some really inopportune times that can make us feel very vulnerable. I know that I'm a crier. If you guys have been listening, you know I cry, right? Crying is a way that I process many, many different types of emotions. It actually shows, like in my tears, it's leaving and exiting my body. But crying isn't the most opportune thing to do at all times. How many people feel comfortable crying at work,
Mm.
right? How many times are you said, well, that's not a professional thing? But there are times when instinctively, like, it could be important, that emotion is coming. But what happens is that we suppress it. We say, this isn't the right time. I can't do this right now. For whatever reasons, it's too much. I don't have time to sit in this. I'm afraid of judgment or other things that people are going to pass. And so we don't allow it. We start to feel it, right? Remember that step one, the vibration comes to us. Step two, we might start getting those thoughts and that physical reaction, and then we shut it down. Nikki, have you ever shut down an emotion?
All the time. All the time, and the bad part about it is usually when I shut the emotion down, I don't ever give it an outlet later. I just say, "Oh, no, now I'm gonna do something I wanna do, and I don't want the emotions to be part of it." And then I scroll on my phone or I eat something that I shouldn't to try to just shove that down even more, right? So if it would be an okay scenario if we said, "Okay, not right now, but I am going to seriously give attention to this emotion and let myself write it out in 20 minutes or in 2 hours." But I don't do that. I just say, no, it's inconvenient now, it's inconvenient later."
Yeah, it's so true, right? Like you said, that emotional. I through my life have been an emotional eater. I still have a tendency to do that because it's exactly that, right? I walk to the refrigerator, and just even taking a moment when I open that fridge door, how many times you open the fridge, you close the fridge, you go to the pantry, open the pantry, close the pantry. You're trying to figure out, like, what it was I want. If you stop and just ask yourself, am I hungry? Or what is it that I'm trying to satisfy because I'm not processing something else. To me, I've always had that visualization, and you just kind of did it too. So if you're watching us, you'll see. But the visualization is that when I eat, I'm actually using the food to go into my throat and push the emotions down. I am suppressing it. So as the food is going down into my body, I'm telling the emotions, I don't want you to come up. Don't bubble up. Don't come out. We're going to push and push. And if it starts to come again, I'm going to head right to the pantry and find something else that is going to give me that emotion or feeling of satisfaction that I'm seeking, instead of allowing some of the harder emotions to process and deal with to come up, right? And so it's kind of like this is gonna sound silly, but this heartburn, right? Where it's like, "Oh, it's coming up, coming up. No, 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 I don't want it." So antacids push it back down, right? But it doesn't go away. It'll keep coming. It'll keep coming up. And so I didn't understand this. Like, this why when I came across the emotion code from Dr. Bradley, like, this was so eye-opening to me, because I thought, "Oh my gosh, I am seeking fulfillment in other ways because I'm not processing the things that are sitting inside of me. They become trapped." Right? And then, Nikki, let's go to the law of attraction. So the law of attraction says that the more that you have within you, you're going to attract the same, right?
Yep.
So I have these emotions that I don't want to deal with. For whatever reason, it was too much in that day. I was overwhelmed. Too many things hit me all at once. Or I consciously just said, I can't. This is too hard. This is too heavy. It's too much. Their lower vibration, right? Let's say, usually higher vibration emotions like love and joy and
Peace.
acceptance, peace, we I'm not going to push that away. I'm going to sit in that. I'm going to relish in it as long as I can. But the more difficult ones of disgust, of despair, of sorrow, of sadness, of grief, those are hard. Like, even just saying them, like, they're hard and they take time,
Mm.
but they're a lower vibration. And so with the law of attraction, Nikki, that lower vibration now is stuck inside of me. On maybe unconsciously, like, right? Like, I was like, "Oh, I don't want to deal with it, so it's not there. We're going to pretend. We're just shoving it in the closet that please nobody open that closet, because it's that one that's going to explode and all your dirty laundry's coming out in it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to clean. I'm just going to shove it away."
Right. And with the law of vibration and attraction, like you were saying, the more you feel it, the more it takes up space in you, the more it's going to create more opportunities around you to feel that. And that's what we don't want, right? And then that's what one of the big perpetuators of chronic anxiety and chronic depression is. Why? Because instead of experiencing depression for a week or a month, we push it down and say, no, I'll get to that later. It's too much. That one is way too hard. I'm not going to open that closet. I am not going to do that. Whatever the fear is behind addressing that. And that's going to cause us to keep shutting that closet. And then these other opportunities are going to come around to reopen that. And you're going to say, no, 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 I can't. Now there's a greater fear that there's something even bigger. There's a bigger monster. Every time you shut that door, it's like it festers and festers. So what happens in your body if you have, like, food that's been in your digestive tract for years? Is it gonna come out pretty? It's not. It just kinda, like, sits and ferments and creates some nasty problems in your gut, and it's true with emotions too. There are so many times in 99% of all the cases I work with, when it comes to a physical health problem, it's because the emotional health problem has gotten too deep, too far unaddressed that it's literally creating harm in the body. And that
Okay,
shows up
wait,
as pain, that shows up as
wait, hold up, Nikki. You just told me that I can have physical complications in my body because of unprocessed emotions. Is that what you just said?
that's what I just said. Do you wanna share more, Katie?
No, I just want to make that clear,
Yes.
right? That
Yes.
that these emotions can cause physical complications.
Yes. 100%. Yes. And
That's that's mind-blowing.
well, that was the case for me when I first discovered the emotion code. I discovered it after I had miscarried a baby, and my whole body just went into shock. It went and had all these problems that were not normal. Within a couple months after miscarrying, my body developed symptoms of uterine problems. If I hopped on Google, guess what I found? Uterine fibroids, uterine cancer, uterine everything else. I was having problems like that. I had no will to live. I felt like a failure. I felt like my life hit rock bottom and it couldn't get any worse. And I just felt that, and it literally unraveled so many areas of my body. My digestive tract was off. My brain couldn't function. My hormones were off. Nothing in my body, it felt like, was functioning correctly. But I didn't go through anything that was out of the natural human experience. I didn't get hit by a bus. I was able to deliver the body of my baby naturally. So there wasn't any heavy medical intervention. What was the problem? The problem was the emotion behind it. The emotions of failure, the emotions of grief, the emotions, all these emotions that I didn't want to feel because I felt like if I felt them, I would have suffocate and die. That is how deep those emotions were. I didn't know how to process them, but something in my mind kept telling me this was not caused by a medical problem. This was caused by an emotional problem. And so every time somebody said, go to the doctor for this, and by the way, I'm not saying don't go to the doctor for your health problems. Was just how I felt in my own personal case was I don't want to go to a doctor to just get a Band-Aid put on this solution when I know that this issue was caused by an emotional heartbreak, an emotional breakdown. And how can doctors fix that? I just couldn't connect the pieces how, in this case, going to a doctor would help that. So in my case, I wrote it out. I just had all these problems going on for a long time until an aunt of mine at a family reunion said, have you ever thought about releasing some trapped emotions? And I was like, okay, that sounds like what, like borderline witchcraft? I don't know. This does not sound like anything that I would understand with the way I've always considered the world. Here I've studied psychology and sociology. This doesn't fit. My ancestors were engineers. This doesn't fit. But I was so desperate for something to change that I was desperate enough to buy the book, The Emotion Code, and read it. And it was when I bought the book and it came and I said, God, tell me if I should not read this book. Tell me if this is witchcraft, if it's not from you. Just tell me and I won't even open it. And I felt like I should at least give the first chapter. And within the first chapter, I should know whether it's good or whether it's totally not. I was like, I'll give it one chapter. In the very first chapter, I was reading the emotion code. So this book right here, if you're watching, is The Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And in the first chapter, I was overcome with the spirit of peace and felt the Lord tell me, you're going to do this for yourself, and then you're going to do this for many, many others. How could I argue with that? I had no clue what I was getting myself into. I didn't even know the basics of releasing a trapped emotion or what it looked like, but I got my answer in the first chapter. Yes, read this book. Yes, pursue this course. And long story short, I was able to work with a practitioner to get all the emotional trauma related to my miscarriage, related to all the aftermath of all of that cleared up in about, I think it was 6 or 7 sessions. And within that whole process, probably a couple weeks of that final session, my hormones went back to normal. My gut started regulating again. I had no more desire to not live anymore. I felt like life could go on and that there was hope. And all these different pieces just started coming together. Probably within 6 weeks after that, I felt normal again to the sense that I didn't have these problems, but I had the wisdom too. So I was actually able to go through this entire cascade of emotions. I got stuck in it. And fortunately, God gave me this tool, this piece that I needed to climb out of that and then open the door for other people to begin doing it. Because I had experienced God's hand directly in my life through this. I knew it was a safe way to begin helping other people to do the same. And that's where Katie comes into the story.
I do. So listeners, I know I sounded shocked when I was asking Nikki that. That was just because it was such a profound thing for me when I first heard it. I am very well versed now in the emotion code and how to release these emotions. I learned from Nikki. I actually came to Nikki at a time early in our friendship years ago that I was in complete and utter depression. I felt that I was in the deepest, darkest hole, and I just didn't know how to get out. I had been praying and seeking and reading in my scriptures, and it just felt dark. I had done many many forms of antidepressants, gone down all different paths, and just really struggled. Nikki and I both have a sense of really trying to get to the root of some of these physical problems, right? And really not just Band-Aid. And so I was just at a loss. And I remember Nikki saying, Katie, I've got this modality that I can help you. And she's like, let me do this emotion code release on you. And I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea what it is, but I felt the spirit say, please just go see her. And so I sat with her and she did a session on me. And she actually was able to work with a heart wall. And I'll explain just what a heart wall is. We talked about trapped emotions, and emotions can get trapped in any part of our body, right? Sometimes they tend to go to a weaker point where we may have had an injury, where there's just a low vibration already happening with our body didn't heal properly. And so that law of attraction can come in there. Or it could be more in tuned with the organ, right? Right? Like the liver is more known for anger. It can be different aspects. Your heart obviously is your life force, right? And so the way that it was described to me was that when I had been hurt, for whatever reason, whatever my conscious mind thought was something that was going to come and hurt me, that my body wanted to put a protection. That if that happened again, it wouldn't get to the core of my heart, right? And so I was building walls or layers around my heart in the sense of trying to protect myself. But in doing so, I was leaving these emotions that were still very tender, that weren't processed. Somebody described it to me, it's like putting a filter of different, lower vibrational things, and so as I'm expressing things, it's going through this filter. As things are coming towards me, it's going through this filter, and so it's being dampened, both as what I was sending out and also what I was receiving. Nikki worked on me and she did this beautiful session and she released so many trapped emotions from all different ages, starting from the very young. The beauty about releasing emotions is that in order to process and release, all we have to do is acknowledge what that emotion was. And sometimes we may need to know what age, or if it was something that we experienced with somebody else, that we absorbed from somebody else, or maybe a couple other factors. But it's really not like talk therapy where you have to relive it. You have to go through all the details. You have to have a conscious memory of it. It's not. And that's the beauty of it. It's very safe. And it's just in that acknowledging it, you bring it up to the surface. You're basically just calling it out in your body and saying, I see you, right? Please, jealousy, come up. I acknowledge you. I thank you that you were there for whatever reason. These emotions aren't good or bad, right? They're a part of our life. We needed to go through it. You thank it with gratitude and then you let it, you release it, you surrender it. And when Nikki and I do it, we surrender it to God. We give it to him because he already took it on the cross. And we don't need to hold on to that baggage anymore. It's beautiful and very easy to release. And so I went through this experience really having no understanding of what she was doing, just really being led by the spirit and Nikki's willing heart to work with me. She handed me the book thereafter and of course I did the same as her and I started reading. The beauty that happened, you guys, that I felt in my life was I was in complete depression. I was struggling with my food because, like I said, I was very well known for eating and pushing my emotions and my feelings down. I felt a freedom I had never felt before. A lightness, if I can just say that. Like, I just felt lighter. I didn't fully understand what was happening. Within weeks, I was able to start a pretty intense correction in my eating that took a lot of devotion to work on inflammation that was happening in my body. If anyone's been depressed, starting something like that is not something you can do without your mind really being engaged. 2 months later, my husband very unexpectedly lost his job. I have always been a very anxious person in my life. This was like the biggest bomb that hit our family, and I did not feel that anxiety. Now I know that that is combined and tied in with the blessings of the Lord, but I didn't have those emotions that had been bubbling up inside of me before that were attracting more of that anxiety. I didn't have it where it was ready to just bubble over. I had poured my cup out. And so as these new emotions were coming, I was mindful. I was able to sit in them and I didn't just let them get stuck in my body. Right? There were many more things that came out that just started that journey of being able to lose weight, make my depression like actually disappear, my anxiety to be calm. I had so much more love and compassion, energy and peace. And I could only attribute it to really understanding, letting go of these old things that no longer served me, that may have been important to me in the time of especially around my heart, that I put them as a layer of protection that I wanted to say, "Oh, if that happens to me again, I don't want it to hurt as bad. So I'm gonna put this here as a boundary," right? I thought in my mind that I was actually using these emotions to trap them to protect me so I wouldn't be hurt. But I didn't understand the beauty of allowing them to go through me, to have experienced it so that I could understand, right? Because we have to remember, again, the neutrality of emotions. When we experience deeper and darker despair and sorrow and grief, you guys, we get to experience a greater love and peace that come. And so this experience that was introduced with Nikki through the emotion code just let me understand that this is a journey, that we don't have to live stuck in our old ways, in our old patterns, in our um ineptness of not understanding, right? That the immaturity of life, but what we can grow forward, right? In that, I want to just really quick mention another book that has been on my journey too. And this one is called The Body Keeps the Score. Um this is by Bessel van der Kolk. So look it up. This is The Body Keeps the Score. When we talk about emotions, our subconscious mind and our body actually hold a record of our whole life. Things that our conscious mind may not remember. Things that our conscious mind might be so wounded, it had to put a block up. Or things that happened that were not even that significant, but we didn't have the capacity to process that emotion in the time. And so this book actually is wonderful for people that have had trauma, that teaches you about paying attention and being in tune to your body. Like Nikki said, where do we hurt? What is what is not working properly? And we can dig in deeper without going through reliving trauma to find those weaknesses, to find those trapped emotions and release them in a manner that is safe, that can then bring so much more balance into both your spiritual and physical body.
Yes. Thank you, Katie. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your incredible story. And it was just such a great privilege to help you through your journey. On my end, it just kept feeling like God was saying, I'm bringing Katie to you. Just work with Katie. Just do your thing. I need to work with her through you. And
And
it
I'm
was
so appreciative of that, right? That you listened and reached out to me because I didn't even know what you had to offer.
yeah. Well, I'm so grateful you were receptive to it. I'm grateful that I got that chance because it's a really tender experience. I do not judge people, whatever they bring to the table. I just hold compassion. And I think that's a beautiful thing that I developed even more fully going through my own journey, experiencing that wide range of grief and depression. Whenever anybody comes to me with an issue, I just hold complete compassion. complete open space for whatever is shared and brought up. I don't share other people's information. I don't call them out by name. It's a calling. It is a sacred, beautiful calling, and it's beautiful to be part of this work. It's beautiful to be able to share this communication together, this connection with each other as children of God, that we're helping each other on this journey to become more like our Father in heaven and receive all the beautiful blessings that Jesus Christ has given to us, that he's already taken on himself all this pain, all the emotional traumas. He's already accepted it to himself. And so it's a beautiful process to just fully let him carry it so that we don't have to.
I
And
love
one
it.
more thing I wanted to mention, because I know some of you out there might be thinking, okay, well, if I release this trauma, what's going to happen? Because with Katie's experience, that was a good story, and she wasn't feeling all the anxiety with her husband losing his job. But I will tell you that you kind of get a little bit of a clean slate. And so for me, the first big shock I had after my heart wall was released was when a very, very good friend that I'd known for many, many years intentionally did something that was absolutely unfair and pretty cruel to my own children. And I, previous to that, before I got my heart wall cleared, I would have said, well, I hope you rot in hell. But I had changed. And I did feel anger. I did feel anger towards this person. But then I allowed the anger to process, and what came out next was compassion. That I had greater compassion and these other thoughts of, wow, if she has done this to me, what other ways her life must be terribly miserable in order for her to inflict something cruel on somebody she had no reason to do that to. So it surprised me. Like, the pain was real. The heart wall does do a good job protecting some things, but it also prevents you from fully living the higher ranges of emotion. It keeps you in the lower stage because that's all that's vibrating there. But when you're able to release that, yes, you are going to feel those ranges of emotion. But then as you allow them to process, like Katie says, you kind of empty your bucket and you can receive new experiences. There is going to be the pain that comes with those experiences, but as you learn to allow them to process, greater emotions will come up. Up until that point, compassion was a rare thing to that level. It was like compassion for somebody who hadn't done anything wrong and something was happening to them. This was one of the first times I had a full awareness of having compassion to somebody who intentionally hurt somebody innocent. That was the first time for me, and I remember it. I remember where I was standing in my home when that compassion filled my heart. And so, yes, it's a journey and it's a process. These emotions aren't bad. They're a beautiful tapestry of our human experience. If we only had joy and joy happened to be the color of purple and the whole thing was purple, what about all the reds of anger? What about all the blues of grief? What about all these other emotions? We would be missing the full tapestry of our lives without those other beautiful colors. So it's not that you're wounded beyond repair, it's just part of the human experience. And so as you're moving forward, feel free to reach out. If you know somebody who does this, reach out to them. If you want to reach out to Katie, she does this too. You can also go to my website. I do have free tools on how to learn to muscle test, which is one of the key components of releasing trapped emotions, or just connect with me and let's figure out what we can do, what that next step looks like for you. For all you listening, thank you for being here. I know that this message shared with you today, God told me this was going to reach you. I don't know your name, but God already told me this was part of the journey. So whatever step it is that he is calling you to take, I encourage you to take that step. I encourage you to do whatever it is in your power to reclaim some of your free will, to reclaim some of your beautiful energy back. And thank you. Thank you for being here. Katie, did you want to say anything else in closing?
Yeah, I did really quick. We talked a lot about emotions and Nikki did a beautiful job of really expressing that when you release that negativity, I felt the same. I have felt a greater love and compassion for people, especially when there's been hurt that's been intended, right? But I only had that because I was able to release that lower vibration from me. So what I would say if you're listening, you're thinking, "Okay, so how do I apply this to me?" I think the best first step that you can do is just to become aware. Become aware of your emotions, right? We don't have to go back and dig through all of our old stuff in order to start. We start today. We start today. Remember that we need to allow and recognize when those emotions start to come and that vibration starts to come. So it doesn't become trapped. We allow ourselves to sit with it, acknowledge it, be okay with it. Right. And so I would say that that's the first step. That is something you can do easily and effectively on your own. Learn, explore, experiment with what you feel, how emotions come up to you. And you can start by moving forward with letting them process naturally through you. And another way, if you're not sure that you want to reach out to somebody, right? Emotion code is a wonderful thing. I'm certified, Nikki certified. There's so many people out. You can just Google and look for anyone that is emotion code certified or look for emotional release. You don't have to go through us. But a wonderful way of working through some of the old is just journaling, allowing yourself. All you have to truly do is seek within yourself, look for those emotions, acknowledge, like I said, and then ask them to be gone. You can ask God to take it. He's already done it. Journaling is a beautiful free exercise that you can do to just work through something. You can find a specific part of your body that maybe has a weakness. You can have something you're struggling with and just ask, is there a trapped emotion? And you can ask and just think in your mind, open your mind to what could come, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. God grants us the grace we need when we're putting forth the effort. He provides the miracles. If you are seeking and don't have a proper order, He's going to fill the gap, you guys. So if this is something that's speaking to your heart, like Nikki and I have shared, take action today, and the Lord will bless you with what you're seeking. And reach
Oh,
out. We're here to help
amen.
in any way we can.
Amen. Thank you so much, Katie. And yeah, I would encourage you also to make it a matter of prayer. Say, God, will you put into my life or speak into my heart the next step for me? I've known people who have gotten on their knees and said, okay, God, show me what emotion I need to let go of. I felt it in their heart and then said, okay, Jesus, will you take this? That also works. But if you need to sit down and do a little bit more digging up, there are so many people who are ready to help you, and there's so many answers. So reach out, do whatever it is that you're feeling inspired to do, and just know that you have support here and in heaven with angels and God, that you have that support. That support is there for you. Thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to being with you again next time. Thanks so much, everyone.